Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today we're back on the Defender, finally. Sorry about the delay between episodes 3 and 4. Lots of things got in the way, lockdown, COVID and parts supply. But today the plan is we're going to change the gearbox, because the gearbox that we've got doesn't actually allow for much clearance. There's a bit of an issue with the top of the rocker covers and the bulkhead, so we need to move the engine forward. So to that end we've got a longer gearbox. I'll let Kayne explain that in just a second. Which brings the engine forward about 100 mil, which gives us the clearance that we need. It's also plenty of space to be able to fit the TD5 radiator in front and all that sort of good stuff, so that's what we need. So without further ado then, let's get that engine out.
Okay, so the problem we've got is this, with the exhaust manifolds and where the fuel pipes sit, is going to interfere with, well, let's just go with rather than by everything, from bulkhead to gearbox mounts to shock mounts, to engine mounts, to everything. It just interferes. It interferes, and I don't like it. And it's too hodgepodge. So instead, what's going to happen is the LT77 short shaft long stick box that is in there is going to get removed, and we're going to stick that gearbox in over there. There's an LT77 long shaft short stick, and what we're going to do is change the gearbox and transfer box selectors that are on top for the Defender ones that are in there, so that the gearbox does not come through the middle of the seat box where it always does, and instead it's going to stay in the right place, but the engine will be slightly forward, giving us more room to work on the manifolds and the fuel pipes.
Right, so we've test fitted everything. It's currently being held into the gearbox with the bell housing through some drifts. We've marked up what we need to cut and where, so we're just going to grab the grinder out, make that cut, and then hopefully that bell housing should fit onto that engine very nicely.
So what we're going to do is we're going to remove the seat box in order to make access to the gearbox and the transfer box easier, and then what we're going to do is unbolt these two, unbolt the prop shafts, unbolt the gearbox cross member, drop the gearbox cross member, drop the two prop shafts off, and then take the whole gearbox and transfer box out, down and out as a oneer, because it makes life easier with this not in the way. And then when we go to reinstall, it makes life a heck of a lot easier, because you're not having to faff around and squeeze your hands in and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to crack on with it.
Right, there's been a very slight change of plan. We're going to leave the transfer box on, and we've put a big axle stand underneath, so that when we undo the gearbox mounts and we take the gearbox out, the axle stand will hold the weight of the transfer box. So let's get that gearbox out.
So now that we have given birth to the gearbox, the next protocol is to remove the selector housing off here. This is a Discovery selector housing. It's no good to us, it's in the wrong position, it'll come through the middle of the seat box, and I don't want that. So instead, what we're going to fit is, we're going to remove this one, and the selector housing from the Defender gearbox here is what we're going to fit. So it's basically undoing these bolts here and removing this entire section and transplanting it onto the other gearbox. Oh, that may be the reason why they don't change them. Okay, so basically the main difference is this is a Defender selector, this is a Discovery selector. As you can see, this one's a lot shorter than the other one because this one sits forward slightly to go into the gearbox tunnel, and the two selectors are different. These two are exactly the same. The distance between these and these is negligible, but this has a ball and a shaft that sits further back, and this has a slot with a gear. Now the pair of them are both held on with in the gearboxes with a Allen key retaining screw. So what we're going to do is undo them, swap them over, so that this will then go onto the new long shaft gearbox and go in and sit in the correct Defender position. So to anybody at home who's planning on doing this, and just so you know the Defender Discovery gearbox difference is, that is the Discovery selector, that is the Defender selector. Also, the selector shafts are different lengths. This one comes in at about 63mm from the edge of the case to the back end of the shaft, and this one comes in at about 78-79mm from the front of the case to the back end of the shaft. You can see from the top there's a slight difference in the cases as well, but it's nominal. So what we're going to do is, if I had a lathe, I would mill one of these up, then fit it into there, put a pin through it, and then reuse that and drill and tap and secure that into the middle. I don't have a lathe, as my compatriots continually remind me, so I'm going to resolve the problem by cutting off the round bit on here that I no longer require, and I'm going to fuse this and this to there by many electrical pixies. So it would appear that an 11mm socket with a 1/4" drive is the right size for both selectors. What we've done is cut off the piece of the old one, the Discovery selector, because we don't need it, and cut the Defender selector. Now what I'm going to do is throw these in the vise and weld them together like that, so that we have a Discovery Defender selector that actually fits and works with the gearbox and puts it in the correct position. So now that it's on, you can see it's in the neutral position, goes back into fourth, forward into second, and get it into fifth. I'll show you into fifth, first, second, and then far over is reverse. But if we leave it in the neutral position at the moment, which is just there, where there's no weight on the shaft, we can continue doing what we were doing. So now that we've got that in, it's lined up, it works. Going to RTV that, put on the selector, reconnect everything back up, and then drop the whole lot back into the vehicle.
So the idea of taking that off then, because transfer case is currently on the floor, just made it easier to get the engine and gearbox in. Now the idea is we're going to line up transfer case and gearbox, and then once it's in, bolt the mount on to the transfer case, and then bolt the mount back onto the chassis leg.
The next day.
So we check the level on the Defender that way, and it's ever so slightly leaning this way, and check the Defender and it's ever so slightly leaning towards the front. So now what we're going to do is just check the level on the engine in both planes to make sure that it goes exactly where we want it to go. And as you can see, the engine's quite far over that way, so what we actually need to do is move it to round about there is where it needs to be, and then in that direction it's the same level as the Defender. So the engine's level in one plane but not the other. So what we're going to do is weld on the engine mount on this side, secure it on this side, use the engine hoist to pull that side of the engine up, and we'll slacken off the transfer box as well so it twists with it, and then put the engine mount on that side.
Right, so now it's time to use the freshly refurbished SIP 140 arc welder. I'll be honest, I've got no idea what it is. I got it for free. It's been powder coated in the nice green colour that everything else is powder coated in. Yeah, let's weld the engine mounts on. is making a fuel line. We were going to do it in braided hose, but we thought, well, we've got the copper, so never mind. We've got a fuel line coming from there, running all the way around, down into this connection here.
So the size of the nut down here is an NPT, and it's not your standard fitting, and unfortunately we can't get it. So what I've done is I've used a piece of the old existing tubing, nice new copper tubing, and what I'm going to do is braze these two together in order to make one fuel line. Now this is only low pressure and it's diesel, so it's not the end of the world. It's not high pressure, I don't have to be concerned about it, it'll be fine.
So that's the welds done now. There was 2 plates and a tiny little triangle piece just here on both sides. I realise it looks rough at the moment, but that's nowhere near done. There's more welding to be done, there's more cleaning up to be done, filing, sanding, that sort of thing. There's a lot of titivation to be done on this one, but it's pretty much the same on the other side, just less fabrication on that. And yeah, the engine's in, the mounts are holding. I'm happy with that.
So we're just fitting the spacers to the AN field lines. As you can see, this is the return path here and this is the feed path down to the pump. The pump then feeds back up into here, which goes into the main distributor. As you can see, I will move my leg. Main fuel line comes into the fuel pump, fuel filter. Fuel filter goes out to the pump. Pump comes back into the main distributor. Leak off pipe goes back to the tank.
Time for the moment of truth. Release the engine. Well, the engine mounts haven't snapped, so that's a bonus. So there we are then, the engine's in, and I think we'll leave it there for this episode. So, the engine's in, and we'll call that for the episode. There's a lot of hard work taking place today, and yesterday actually, 2 days worth. I realise it's been a long one, so I'm sorry about that. If you stuck with me this far, then you're probably interested in the series. If that's the case, like, share, comment, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notified next time one of the episodes drops. Down here there'll be an Instagram somewhere, and the playlist will be over here, I think. But if you liked it, remember, ring the bell, get notified for the next one, and I will see you then.